Good day, everybody, and welcome to RC Taildraggin. Today is show and tell day. What do we have inside the boxes? Okay, now this is a little video I've been thinking about making for some time now. I've been showing on the Facebook group RC Taildraggin a few of my small half-A engines, but I figured I would just go ahead and pull them out here and kind of show you a little bit what we got going on. There's a bit of my small engine collection here. I got pieces from all kinds of manufacturers. Several years ago, I started collecting these little engines, and at that time, I had no idea there were so many different manufacturers. Of course, we're all familiar with the Cox engines, but there must be at least a dozen more or more manufacturers of these things. There's more. Basically, these are all the Cox engines, and these are all the everything else engines. Okay, so we have to wonder how these things work with so few moving parts. I'll take a quick minute here and explain to you how they work. They're really very simple. Okay, we're going to assume a couple things here first. We're going to assume that we're at the top dead center, all compressed with fuel ready to fire. And we're also going to assume that the next amount of fuel air is already down here in the crankcase. So how does it work? Okay, after we have ignition and the pistons traveling down the cylinder here, this air fuel mixture that's down in the crankcase starts to compress. You have compression going on in here. And that compression does two things. The first thing it's going to do is close the reed valve that's in here, and then compress the fuel for travel into the upper cylinder. Now there's two grooves cut into the side of the cylinder, or flutes, that are closed off when the piston's anywhere except for the bottom dead center position. When the piston gets down into the bottom center position, those two flutes at the top of the cylinder here will open up for a moment, allowing this compressed gas in here to squirt into the upper chamber area, a lot like a fuel injection, because it is under pressure. And as soon as those ports open up, the fuel spits into the upper cylinder here. Okay, so then when those two flutes open up, the pressure is released, the gas goes forward, and now we're empty here again. And then after the piston leaves the bottom dead center and starts to go back up the cylinder, a vacuum is created in here. That vacuum allows this reed valve to open, drawing air in through the venturi, which is then mixed with fuel being controlled by the needle valve. The needle valve controls the richness. And the cylinder then completes its trip up to the top. Fuel is drawn in. The fuel that's already up here is compressed, and through heat we have ignition, and then the process repeats. The piston travels down the cylinder, closing the reed valve, compressing the fuel in here. When it gets to the bottom, it squirts to the top, and the process continues over and over. Very simple. Only two moving parts, the crank and the piston. And it does that over 15,000 times a minute. Really high RPMs. Then we have this other type of engine. This is not a reed valve. This is a, what do they call that? Forward valve? I can't remember right off the top of my head. If I find it, I'll put it in a caption. And with this one, it doesn't have a reed valve. Now how it works is you have the venturi here and the fuel coming in. And then the crankshaft has a groove or a notch cut in it, so that when the piston reaches top dead center, that notch aligns up with the venturi. The vacuum in here is broken and the fuel is sucked in down into here, and the process from there is the same. Very cool. This is an interesting one here. This is a Cox 09, I believe, and they have this throttle mechanism on here. You get a little bit of throttle control on the Venturi, but you also get some of the exhaust control over it. They basically suffocate the engine to control RPMs. Very cool. So yeah, my Cox collection is over here. I collect all different kinds. Every time I see something that looks a little different, I think about getting it. Very cool. Now, a good portion of these engines are free flight or control line engines. Now, what do we mean by that? Basically, these engines are fired up and you adjust the needle valve for the RPM that you want. Basically, the only control over those RPMs is the mixture. You're controlling the amount of fuel that mixes with the air that's coming in. That's how we get the RPMs that we want. Now, some of these are also RC planes engines. Basically, we have a throttle control here, which gives us really precision RPM that we want at the moment, taking off or landing. The RC or the non-RC versions, in other words, the versions without a carburetor or without any throttle control, basically you just run them till they're out of fuel. This is I believe an 8cc fuel tank on here, and it'll probably burn for 5 minutes, maybe. So yeah, this is the collection. Now, I'm not going to go over too many of these individually. They all work pretty much the same. We got a lot of antiques in here. A lot of these are mint engines from the 50s. I'm really proud of the collection. It's taken me a while to get these, but a lot of these have been run. A lot of these have not been run. I'm hoping to make videos of them running in the future. We'll have to see what kind of time we get. The weather's going to start turning crappy here. It's late October. Another thing, here's all the parts. Spare parts. Most of these are spare parts for the Cox engines, but I do have gaskets and everything I need for most of these engines. There's another interesting one. I believe this was the Wenmac. Spitzy. Where's the I can't find the one I wanted to show you right now. Oh. Atwood 049. A lot of these are 049. Until I started collecting them, I didn't realize that how many were different sizes, or how many 049s were made. Now, this is the one I was just wanting to show you. This is the Holland Hornet. Interesting. I believe this is the OK Cub. It's got a few OK Cubs in here, different sizes. Here's another interesting one here, Spacebug. Very cool engine. Also, I have a Norvel 049. I think this is it. I've got a couple of different Norvels. I'm thinking about putting this one on the QT. Give it some throttle control. It'd be cool. This is an Enya 0.08. This looks like a beefy little engine here too. That's another OK Cub. .09 maybe. I forget. I've cataloged most of these. I have to keep track of them somewhere else because otherwise I can't remember which ones they are when I go to pull them out. But yep. This is a .074 RC. So many different ones. Another .09. This is a .09, I believe. RC. So yeah, that is the collection. Now, you're probably thinking, if this is a collection, then why are they all just thrown in these boxes haphazardly? Well, I didn't collect them to be worth a lot of money, because they're not worth a lot of money. All these engines that you see here, you can find on eBay any day. There were millions and millions of these engines made, and you could still buy 50, 60-year-old brand new engines in the packaging. There's tons of them. So, yeah, there's always another one showing up that piques my interest that sometimes I just have to have. Also got my electric starter. Found this. I've never used it, but I figured, gee, after flipping all those 049s for all those years or whatever, you know what? It's time to get something a little better. Hopefully it works good. But yep, that's it.